So you were actually guest number one of this little experiment that I started way back 3 or 4 years ago. I don't know how long, and so I appreciate you coming back. First of all, on short notice, a little bit of a scheduling fun, as often happens. Any
Oh,
podcaster who has guests knows that can happen. So I appreciate you doing that, but also appreciate you were the first one to take a chance on returning a Skype call or whatever I did back then. I can't remember what technology I was using back then to
oh. It was
talk
probably
with.
Skype.
Probably.
So yeah,
Like I've been saying,
old Skype,
the
not new Skype.
Skype actually has been, again, knock on whatever my desk is here, but the this Skype, aside from being a user interface disaster, actually has been audio visually really stable and really good. For
Hmm.
I've been using it with Ecamm Live to live stream. This one's not being live streamed, but and it's been surprisingly good because it's yeah, quality wise held up, audio conversation stuff held up. I know you guys over at ShopTalk, you've been using the Zoom to talk, but then you record your own end on each computer, so it doesn't really matter what the quality is like per se.
Yeah,
But
but if you're doing like live streaming, you do need a level of quality. Did you hear about that Skype white noise thing? Did you hear about that?
no,
Apparently, Skype in the call like adds a small amount of white noise filter to other audio so that it sounds like a phone call or something. Otherwise, it's like too crystal clear. I can maybe dig up the article, but it
okay,
was really fascinating. There's like a Skype white noise that gives it just a little bit of crackle.
like they were intentionally just so that it wasn't super great quality. That seems real. I guess the
Yeah, yeah,
what's
I
the
don't
I'm
know.
trying to figure out what the conspiracy angle is there, so that they're not, because it would make sense then if they said upgrade to Skype Pro and
Or maybe it was to fill in the gaps, right? Like
right,
in so
like
the
some sort of
audio
algorithm.
quality is pretty bad because it's ultra compressed or whatever. But I think it was maybe just like to so like when it gets quiet on a call, you're not just listening to utter silence. You're listening to a little bit of like a shh,
Mm,
shh, shh, shh. So
yeah.
anyway, I'll look for it. Yeah, white noise and Skype call. Anyway, it's just interesting, and maybe certain head cam or headphones like kind of
Accentuated. Yeah.
accentuate it. Yeah.
Huh.
Anyway, that's a
There's
thing I learned about recently, and
there's always
now I'm
something.
just spilling gossip. I don't even know if it's true. I can't even find it.
Well, because so the one of the interesting angles since last we talked, whatever it's 3 or 4 years. I mean, we've talked, but but on this show for the purpose of the people who listen to this show and assume that we haven't spoken since you were on the podcast in episode one, because we're all characters in people's minds. You at that time you were on a Mac, and now you switched
Hmm.
over to Windows, not just now, but like over the last
Over the last 4 years, I
for
think.
yeah. And that was like, was it driven primarily like gaming fun is on the Windows thing, and then kind of like everything else kind of comes along with that, or what was the
That
motivation?
was part of it. My whole Goes Windows experiment was part because I was like I want to start gaming with my friends who are doing gaming, but uh, like the major piece of it was actually my podcast Shop Talk Show. Like I looked at the stats, and the split was 50-50 Windows and Mac across the world. And that was really surprising because my like sense of web developers and people who would listen to the show was like 100, no, 98% Mac.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we had one guest, Kimberly Blessing, who had a PC, and we were like, how she was like, how do I record? And we were like, give us a wave file. I don't even know, sound recorder, or Windows Media Player. I don't even know. We like, but she had like Audacity or something already installed, so that worked out. Um, but looking at the stats, we get a lot of questions from not just America but around the world, and developers in places like India or Indonesia would like write in and say, oh, I want to get into web development, or my designer only hands me sketch files. What do I do? Or what, should I buy a Mac for web development? And
Mm-hmm.
our advice was just like, yeah, buy a Mac, lol, like just figure it out,
Yeah.
which that's okay to, I don't know, Westerners, but if you're in a position where a Mac is like, you know, half a year's salary or something, you know, like I don't exactly know the exchange rates or whatever, but like you can't, you know, like that's not a cool answer. That's not a viable answer when like a Windows laptop can be $300, you know,
Yeah.
like versus 3,000. So quite literally an order of magnitude more expensive. So, what do you do, you know? And so I just was like unhappy with our answer to that question. Like, how do I do web dev on Windows, you know? And most of web dev on Windows, at least then, was mostly .NET. So you'd open up Visual Studio, just do whatever .NET tells you to do, and launch a website. Or Java, you know, a lot of Java developers. But yeah, I just was starting to get uncomfortable with that answer, you know, and so I pitched it to Microsoft. I was like, you give me a computer and we'll switch, and I'll switch, and I'll try switching for like a year. I'll commit to a year. And and I originally wanted money from them. I was like, you pay me and I switch, you know, cover it. And they're like, no, we'll just give you a device. And we're like, oh, well, okay, fine. So I got a device, and I uh, uh, got on it. It took a long time to it took about a month to switch over, like my whole dev flow and stuff like that. But I finally switched over, and yeah, finally like started understanding, you know, how it all goes together, how I'm gonna work. Installing Ruby was a pain. It didn't work. It just straight up like it was in September, and I was looking at pull requests from January that had never been merged into a gem, like, and it was just not like, you know, no one paid attention because no one had a Windows machine and no one cared. So that, like, quite literally, that was the issue. So
Yeah.
I raised those issues. Microsoft responded, worked with people, got, you know, some of those blockers fixed, which was really awesome. But then that next year, in I guess April at Build 2015 or something, they announced that they were gonna do Bash on Windows, which basically puts Linux inside Windows somehow. I don't know, but it's in there now, and you can download Ubuntu from the App Store, which is incredible, you know.
Yeah.
So that changed my development life. I mean, honestly, I would have had to switch back if they had not implemented that feature, just because it was too tough, you know. But I like a lot about Windows. That's the thing too, is I like a lot about it. And then I did have picked up a bit of a PC gaming habit, which, you know, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's I don't know, it suits my aesthetic. That's why I always say, like, you know, it's very, I don't know, flat design, very type driven, icon driven, all responsive. The entire OS is responsive. Like it feels very, I don't know, web inspired, which is kind of how I like things. So
Yeah. And I would guess that there's a similar vibe certainly in the, or a parallel to like in the podcasting world where you sort of get into or I found anyways, I get into like this funnel of like, or what's the word I'm looking for? The sort of closed-minded group anyways of like, it's all Mac. Podcasters are using Mac because why would you, there's no audio hijack on Windows, so how
well,
could you even bother or
hundred
whatever?
percent of podcasts are four guys sitting around talking about
Yeah,
Macintosh.
exactly. And so you don't have too many, is that an Internet Explorer cup you even have?
Oh yeah, it's a Microsoft Edge cup.
Nice. Now built with Chrome. Uh,
Yeah, now built with.
but well, it does have a Chrome E. That was maybe like a little,
I
wasn't it
know, a little
a little preview?
foreshadowing.
Yeah.
They did. I didn't pick up on it. I
Nobody saw
should.
that one coming.
I didn't do my duty.
But you can sort of living in a vacuum, I think, is what I was searching for earlier. But like where it feels like, oh, of course everybody's on Mac. Why would you even bother? But I do get, yeah, even whether it's with clients or with people through this show over the years where they'd ask for podcasting advice, and like I just have to shrug and say, I don't know. I guess you yeah, like Windows Explorer Recorder or something or other. Like I have history with Windows, and I have my
Yeah.
iMac is boot camped into Windows just so I can basically die at Overwatch. But
Hmm.
otherwise, yeah, it's a strange world. But it is switching for me too. Just out of that, there's certain things on doing the streaming thing where Windows, I don't know what it is, Windows CPU, Windows operating system, combination of the two, some sort of hardware encoding, whatever stuff, where on the streaming side, $800 PC can kick the butt of my $3,000 iMac and
I mean,
drives me mental.
yeah, like I don't want to like I'm not king evangelist. They don't do
They
this
don't pay
for me,
you.
but
Yeah.
they don't pay me. But like OBS, everyone, I was like, I think I'm gonna get into streaming. I stream Overwatch, and I've thought about doing like a dev stream on Twitch. And I was like, oh, how do I do it? And everyone's like, oh, do OBS. And I downloaded OBS. It's not great. It's like there's power in there, but it's one of those Windows apps. Your legacy vision of Windows where you download it and you're like, yep, 50% chance that's a virus. Like, that's oops. Well, let's just hope it's not that bad, or it's only Bitcoin. I don't know.
Yeah,
Let's just hope.
exactly.
But then the but there's this thing called Streamlabs OBS, which is by a company, but it's basically that open source project now in a different wrapper. So which is very user friendly and very great. I don't know if it's for Mac.
No.
Maybe no, but
Anytime I've asked about it, they say, because it actually doesn't. Funny enough, so I did the bootcamp thing, then Streamlabs OBS or Slobs came out, and I was like, oh great, I can try this out. I got the Windows machine, it works, except for whatever reason, their Slobs is not the driver's support or whatever on their bootcamp does not work, and so it just crashes. So every time I boot up Windows, I fire up Streamlabs OBS just to see, and it seems to get a little bit further each time. So whatever they're doing, and
the loader gets a little farther.
Yeah, so it doesn't. Now I can get to like the loading screen where I can start to build a scene, and then it crashes. So I mean, it's sort of like
I could give you a tour of mine.
it's sort of like a race between whether I cave and get a Windows box or Streamlabs OBS adds support for Mac, and we'll see what comes first, I guess. But
yeah, well, it has to update every time I download, so
Yeah.
this actually was maybe a mistake to open, but but it's so cool, and it makes it
Yeah.
so easy, and like all the alerts and all the like bling, like, oh, dance emoji because like you tip me or whatever. I think I have it set up to play the Owen Wilson wow every time somebody follows me or whatever.
It's just
Wow.
fun. That's what I get people being afraid of like turning on a live stream, and that's like its own sort of performance anxiety and all that stuff or whatever. But like to me, it's just like a fun thing like to experiment with, and maybe that's just how I'm wired, I guess. But we're seeing even like in the web dev world, like so many people, like you mentioned, doing live coding, like they're doing like these Twitch shows where it's just like a guy or girl on a screen with code, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like there's no there's no game that you're following. You're just like watching someone code, which is amazing and cool, and like why not? And I love that it's enabling that kind of stuff these days.
Suze Hinton, she's No-Op Cat on Twitch. She does like a Sunday show. She's big into IoT JavaScript, like Internet of Things. And Suze Hinton, her stream's maybe 2 hours long. I don't know. But the first half hour or hour is her just reading GitHub issues, like drinking coffee, reading GitHub issues. And I love it because I love that is like actually what it is. And so she just like, looks at pull requests and she's like, okay, I see what he's trying to do. Okay, they're trying. Okay,
Yeah.
And she's just merging pull requests, and it's like whatever compelling content. It's so interesting. And I know you can I know you can stream on Mac and with Ecamm Live and stuff. But what I find interesting is like Windows, at least for like these video gamer kids and stuff like that, who play Overwatch and Fortnite exclusively all the time. It's Mac used to be or is are always considered the creative platform, right? Like it's designers with horn rimmed glasses like myself doing like whatever
perfect.
creative, garage banding and things like that. Windows still doesn't have like the garage bandy stuff, but it just has like it's starting to enable people to make just content, through apps like Streamlabs and things like that. Just kind of like they're producing, and maybe it's millennials, but like it used to be you had to do a YouTube and you had to get a 4K camera and like record that and then like edit it and then mix in some background audio and some 3D graphics and stuff, Now it's like, no, I just turn on a camera and play Overwatch. That's content now. Like what a cool world. There is. I will say. I will say there's a huge. I think everybody is very familiar with like the difference between like produced and off the cuff. And off the cuff generally isn't that great. It's a lot more quantity than quality. But it's just interesting. Interesting world. So.
Well, it's certainly like the even my nephew, I was just thinking here, this Christmas is like asking me for like Windows PC computer parts, basically, kind of cobble together. He's 12 years old to kind of build a PC with the goal, I think, of becoming a famous video player or whatever. But like, even still, it's just like the fact that that's a thing that he can do, and it's not even, it doesn't even enter his mind. Like his parents, my sister, whatever, they have a Mac, but it doesn't even enter his mind that he would even use that box, because everybody he sees is on a Windows machine, and that's how you do it. Like it's not a it's just not an option. Yeah. And it does, like Windows kind of backwards walked into this, industry as being the de facto standard for that, and Mac, not that this is a Mac PC podcast, but like, it does feel like you would have thought Mac would have been like right in there, like, hey, we do video, we're the media people, but they jump all over this and see this as a huge, but again, it's kind of like, it goes back to like Apple's blind spot to gaming and fun on a computer. That you have fun as long as there's a creative output at the end that you can put into a nice book or onto a video or a DVD or whatever onto Apple TV.
Conveniently sold by Apple.
Yeah.
No, but they kind of go for the artifact, right? Not the like just nonsense, right? Sort of. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. Why didn't what is the blinking on what the video app for Apple is? Is it
like Final Cut Pro or like?
Yeah. What was the cheap?
iMovie.
Yeah. Like why didn't I stream?
Yeah.
Like that? Like where's that at? That actually be there. But anyway.
Bringing it back like the podcast, where they added podcasting into GarageBand, and that was kind of like, good, they get podcasting. I think, but there's an easy business they can get into, and it's not gaming. And so that's why they kind of like are okay with associating with that world, I guess. But like every company now, like there's companies who are building like Streamlabs OBS, but then there's like add-on stuff for just like targeted purely at streamers, whether it's the graphic overlays that people are making and selling, or that stuff, or the like noise, sound effects, there's other stuff, like there's software on top that you're layering on top of this stuff to enable, and people are just like building a business around just that kind of stuff. There's tons of streaming software that we haven't even touched on that people can use and mess around with that aren't just from like the big companies like Wirecast or whatever stuff. So yeah, big business.
Yeah,
big money.
I mean, Bitmoji, which are those kind of weird, geeky emoji. They're awesome. I want them. But overlays. Like, it's cool. I use what I need, HTML, and I started making overlays with HTML. So I have like a code pen I update with my win-loss record,
right?
And like that goes on my screen. And it's just a little widget, so it's kind of amazing what you can do. It's cool. I think it fits into the context of showing your mic, just the podcasting angle. Just because, podcasting, it's very 2007, 6, 7 sort of like hit a stride.
Yeah.
Or like at least got into Apple iTunes. Like that's a big deal. And then podcasting was just a nerd hobby until Serial, I feel like. And then Serial hit, and now it's like everyone has at least a podcast app on their phone.
Yeah.
And now people are picking up a lot more. There's a lot more good content. In some ways, the internet has not gone to more audio. The internet has gone to more video streaming. And so I think you do a great job of like exploring tools. And I saw you playing with TikTok lately, which I love. I like TikTok.
Are you on there?
I'm on there,
I'll
but
have
I
to find
don't
you. I don't
post.
know. Yeah. Oh yeah.
I
Yeah.
just lurk because I'm afraid of teenagers.
Yeah.
I don't want to get made fun of by teenagers. So, but it's fun, you know. And it's like Vine. I like Vine quite a bit. They're still savage, but just weird. But it's got that
Yeah. How's that feeling? Yeah.
vibe. It's not that, you know. So I don't want it to be like, oh, it's Vine too. You know, it's way more centered around music and kind of, I don't know, like you act like, you know, you're lip syncing or something like that. Like I think that they used to be a lip syncing app or something before that.
Yeah.
Listening
Radio or something like that. Yeah.
yeah. So you know, I mean, it's just about geeking around. It's fun, like Vine is fun, you know. Anyway, but there's also just memes I don't understand, like the flicking over paper thing. Just like I can watch about 2 of those and then I'm bored. But they do it all the time. They're still doing it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I feel like it's not like I explore that and I think I start to get annoyed with myself or whatever. Like, what's the business angle for this? And like, why would you? Even if I was talking to a client, like, I don't think like local flower shops should be on KitKat, no, TikTok, whatever it is.
TikTok.
Yeah. It has to have a presence on there, or whatever. But it's just kind of like I tweeted the other day. Like it's just it reminds me of the fun of the web, where you're just like someone would even like you'd listen to a podcast and you'd like I remember like cutting out little things of like Dan Benjamin saying something stupid and then tweeting it back to him or whatever, and like stuff like that. Like what Twitch enables with like their clips thing too is to me like an amount of like a little fun little hidden thing that you can do with the web and remix, share, show off fun stuff you do. And that's where podcasting itself doesn't have an easy way to do that. And so we have to go outside of the medium, the MP3s basically, to do some of that. And so like I was thinking like, gosh, maybe I could set up a Good Stuff TikTok account where we just share like, because half of what's fun on TikTok is like some dumb audio that isn't really funny originally, just Dave saying something from ShopTalk Show, let's say, out of context. But then you get a 12-year-old kid who reenacts that with his buddies in a silly, stupid way, and all of a sudden that has like 100,000 likes, and it's like,
yeah,
nobody. That's like, yeah,
kid puts a shoe on his head and just mouths the words I'd said, and it's funny.
Yeah,
and I don't get it, but
yeah, that's what I was talking to my wife last night. It was like our 8-year-old son. He would love. Like he might kill on there too, like for all I know, but he would love it. Like, but then I guess as going back to the parenting podcast part is like, how do you? There's no way to like set him up with an account that doesn't have like the nearly naked women and the guys talking with the naked women and the whatever stuff going on. It's not kid friendly by any means.
No, that's a big conversation. We tell my kid, he gets in trouble if he opens up the YouTube app by himself, and that's only to say like we've had that. I heard somebody say it, so it's not an original Dave Rupert thought at all, but YouTube and these sites or whatever are places where anyone can upload stuff without grown-ups knowing. That's like no, grown-ups don't approve this content,
Yeah.
And so sometimes bad people put bad stuff up or whatever, or inappropriate. He understands inappropriate, so like inappropriate stuff.
Yeah.
And he gets that. He gets like, oh, I need like a grown up to kind of navigate the waters here on the internet, or at least on YouTube. And so, but yeah, this would have the same problem, right? Like, I mean, Vine had that problem too. I mean, I'll be watching Vines in the kitchen. I still watch Vines, like on YouTube compilations. But you'd be like, you're like, oh, funny, there's a kid talking with a shoe on his head, and then the next one's just foul mouth, like mega yelling, and you're just like, whoops, like I should have had headphones in, like. So that's same thing. I mean, and you can't shield your kids forever. I don't want to sound like but
an 8-year-old versus a 16-year-old, obviously there's or a 4-year-old.
Right. There's a level of appropriateness. Although I walked my son to school. He's in kindergarten. He's only 5, but I did hear like a 5th grader just drop the F-bomb, like was 6 feet from a teacher too. And I almost called him out, but I just was like, my dude, you cannot. But I sensed it in the voice, I'm like, he's getting this from like streamer dudes,
Oh
like
yeah.
those are his idols. And so he's just emulating this like what the F, dude, like
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
streamer dude attitude,
That's
and
my,
so
my boys. They play like, they're like pretend to be playing Fortnite, like in the yard or whatever, and they're like, "Okay, you'll be Ali, you be Ninja or whoever," like and like they're
yeah.
pretending instead of like pretending to be Sidney Crosby playing hockey or whatever. Like they're pretending to be the streamers or whatever, and like
Right.
somehow,
They're
yeah,
the stars, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So somewhere out there, there's a kid pretending to be Dave Rupert, coding and recording a podcast. I think, right?
Well,
That's the dream.
that poor kid. Um, you should reach out. But yeah.
This is where, in the audio portion, we will insert, we say, meaning I, not my team of people that work on this podcast, but we'll insert a sponsor spot that I'm excited and curious and having fun with Gumroad, who's going to sponsor this podcast. But the video version, I think 5 people see. So you don't actually, we're not going to do a whole sponsor spiel right here, but you can go check out gumroad.com/showmeyourmic. And I'll just say that it's one of the most fun ways, speaking of fun things like TikTok, it's one of the funnest, easiest, what was the Apple thing they did? The most fun iPod?
Amazing. Our best one yet.
Yeah. But it's the most fun way to actually, if you're selling stuff or you want to give away stuff, like PDFs, any sort of digital things that you want to create, and you don't want to set up a whole store, you can't pay for Shopify, you're not going to set up WooCommerce and a WordPress. You just want to be able to like send your buddies a link of a PDF you did or a video you made or MP3, like a compilation of sound effects from a podcast, let's say. I have a whole archive of Dave Rupert saying goofy things that I'm going to sell someday and get rich off of.
Monetize that.
Yeah. So we'll sell that at Gumroad or whatever. And it makes it super easy to do. You can also, all sorts of newsletter tracking or newsletter sending, and things like that you can do through it. So check out gumroad.com/showmeyourmic, and then you can sign up there. It'll help me out, help yourself out with some easy e-commercing. And because, man, speaking of web dev, e-commerce is always like, if I get a client calling me and saying, we just want to set up a quick store and try it out. Like, that's always the like, oh, this is gonna be painful, and you don't have the, obviously if it's like Walmart calling you or whatever, but like inevitably it's a small business that has no budget for it, nobody to devote to actually manning the store, running the store, and they just want it for $50. And so that's where I would just say, check out Gumroad, start there, because it works really well, and you don't need a whole team of people to manage it and update it, and so cool beans. So podcasting on Windows, going back to what we started with.
Yeah.
What are some, like, when you switched from Mac to Windows, what are some of the like gotchas and like, oh crap, I missed this, but oh crap, or oh great, this is here, kind of, the pluses and minuses of the switch that you remember happening?
Yeah. So comparing to Mac, the biggest thing would be no audio hijack, right? No, like, just lovely interface to record audio. When I started, it was very much like Sound Recorder was the app, like the legacy one that you use to make fart sounds on your weird, like the pointer mic, the little one that sat on your desk.
Yeah.
And it was awful. But now they have Voice Recorder, which is kind of the native voice recording app. It records an MP4. It's pretty good. I mean, all things considered, I think it does pretty good quality. That's what I hand off to you to edit ShopTalk, and it seems to do good. I'll talk about my audio fiasco the other day, but man. Anyway, so that's that. But for mixing, no GarageBand, no Logic. I ended up, through my Creative Cloud account, I have Adobe Audition CC, which turns out is like pretty good for podcasts. Like, there's a lot of power in there. You can, that background noise thing that happens in every podcast, like somebody's air conditioner running. You can actually filter that out in there, because it'll take like a noise profile and then noise cancel it basically throughout your whole audio track. I have not figured out how to do that. I read a tutorial about halfway and then was like, I'm done, so it's just gonna sound bad. So I do a little bit of audio mixing in there. I will say, not this is a insider podcast. It's not my favorite tool. In some ways, you from like a GarageBand or Logic point of view, like it's so good, at like audio and clipping and splitting tracks and where you like, arranging and sliding things and the scaling, is so good, especially for podcasts on an hour mark. I feel like Audition is optimized for like a 3-minute track, just the UI, just how
Oh
it
yeah,
lays.
like sort of music and that kind of
Like a,
stuff, or movie
yeah, like
maybe,
a
or
3-minute 16 track piece, um, very like that. And so I don't feel like it's the I don't feel like it's quite what you want from like a audio production suite, like a podcast thing. Going the other way, there's Audacity, which is like old school, man. I mean, like that's like the king of kings for like audio recording. But
yeah.
it is, but it's buggy, man. In the first, because it's open source, you don't have an MP3 codec, so you gotta go install an MP3 codec, whatever that means, and then you have that, and then it's fine, it's good, but it's buggy and it can crash, and then you're like, I don't know what happened, and then I have like a 17 gig, Audacity file on my desktop that I can't open, and that's not what you want.
Yeah.
Um, One of the foibles of the voice recorder app, which I talked about before, is if you minimize it, it stops recording. So,
Really?
gotcha. Don't do that. So I just anyway, you just leave it up. Don't mess with it. I think
Yeah.
they're fixing that, or it might be fixed already, but I just now have trained myself never minimize that app, or else you die. So
You need like a little
uh,
buzzer in your chair that like anytime you hover near the minimize thing, it just like shocks you or whatever, like a
oh,
sort of
oh,
cattle
right now
prod.
there's like a window behind it, and I'm like, oh no, dude, you messed up, and
Yeah.
because if you click that window, you'll not see it, and it's possible you minimize it and you don't know, so
Yeah.
it's big point of stress. So
Yeah, I know there's lots of like I know a friend of mine, who podcast guy, Ray Ortega, does like lives and dies in Audition, and so I think it's like a thing on the, but he does it on the Mac, so I don't know if the Mac UI is different than, I would guess it's
I
similar to
think
the
it's all
Windows
the
UI.
same, just
Yeah.
like Photoshop and whatever.
Yeah. So, but it's potato or whatever kind of thing with some of that. But I agree in terms of just like some of the, I don't know what the word is, the smoothness of the UI or whatever. It just, Audition and Audacity both kind of feel very like a Windows app to me, and don't feel kind of like nice. I don't, and I can't put a finger on why
Yeah,
exactly.
no, I mean, I think just like it can be. Hold on, I'm getting a call from my spam. This is my Chinese spam caller. I get it
Oh,
every day.
if you need to take it, you can go.
No, no, it just we have a long relationship. They
No.
call me talking Chinese. I don't speak Chinese, and I hang up. So, um, but yeah, so um, uh, so yeah, the tell, right, of any podcast or audio editing software is how quickly can I zoom and scale the whole track, right?
Yeah.
Like go from 1 hour to 30 seconds, 1 hour to 30 seconds. Um, on Audacity, it's this big scroller that you like scroll, and kind of like a buffer, I guess, or like, I want to show me this much or show me this much. It's a little line on the top, a little window, I guess you'd say. Um, Almost like the loop mechanism. I want to loop from here to here. It's like
Right.
a zoomer mechanism. Um, it is, and you mouse wheel, like to get down to the minute you want, and then you grab it, and then you like, move it to the actual part you want. And so that is bad, for some reason, any of the other ones, you just highlight the clip you want or whatever, or like put the timer where you kind of want it, and then you do the zoomer, and it'll like the time piece will stay in the middle, and it'll just get bigger,
Yeah.
smaller, bigger. That's the tell for a good audio app.
Hmm.
And Audition, I feel like, doesn't hit that muster. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and that's why I think I can understand the worry. Like, not that I'm not advocating or for saying like podcasters, the horizon or the future is Windows. You need to get ready for this or anything like that. Like, so obviously, if you're happy on the Mac, you're happy on the Mac. If you're happy on Windows, stay. Like, both platforms are going to be around for a long time. But I know for me, anytime I've thought about the idea, like I'm not averse to switching just for the sake of switching, and like kind of like what you did with on the dev side, like just to have the experience of it. I think it would help me as a someone who helps audio folks with podcasts generally to be able to help Windows folks, because there's a lot of, as we know, there is actually a lot of Windows people out there in the world, and so to be able to speak to that. But again, like to do like a full-time gig as editing podcasts, then it's tough, and so you're kind of like trying to balance one foot in both worlds. So it's admirable that you took the plunge on behalf of Windows developers around the world for the
well,
website.
yeah, no, I really wanted to like expose the other side and kind of take a tour and experience a strange new land, and
Yeah.
um and we had like a working relationship with Microsoft in the past. I was exposed by proximity, I guess, to what they were doing. So it's not absurd,
Yeah.
that I would kind of do this, but everyone I worked with at Microsoft or whatever, they use Macs, so for creative work inside. So it was, still a big foreign leap, and I think even some of them were like, "You sure about this, buddy?" But it worked out. I'm happy now. There's weird quirks and stuff like that, but it gets better every day. That's you know and not
Yeah.
to make it a Mac PC thing, but yeah, like the trajectory of PC right now is pretty good. So
Yeah, and whether you're into gaming or not, but even I think the focus of a Windows platform, obviously not having a distraction like the iPhone, which obviously we all love our iPhones or iPads, but like they don't really have that issue, is if it's an issue, I guess, of a massive platform on their mobile phone. They have the Surface and stuff, but yeah, like, so their focus has to be making this desktop environment, laptop, whatever, as good as possible, I think.
yeah,
So
productive and good, and less crashy. I guess
yeah.
you might your previous Windows experience might have been a lot more crashy than it is now, but
And obviously, I know you joke about like you installing some new video card, and like when you're building your own PC like you did, I think that comes with its risks. Obviously, just like if you built a Hackintosh or some sort of custom Mac somehow, and you're sort of flying outside the safe zone on some of that stuff, and bring the risks associated with it then. But yeah, anyway, I think it's
yeah, that's been a deal. I can show you here. I'll move the camera here. Well, we're taking a tour. So like that's, pardon the mess. That's my like PC, and it's pretty dumb and neon-y.
Yeah.
But I like I enjoyed building it, and I wanted a machine custom tailored to my needs, and I thought that was really fun to do. But I did inherit a lot of problems. I think my motherboard was either bad, or I overclocked it and burned out the chip or something, the CPU, and like I think I made a mistake, and it was hard to figure out how to fix it. Like this fall, I just basically reordered every single part of my computer. So like anyway,
Yeah.
it was just such a mess. I just was like I have to, it's crashing during Skype calls and podcasts, and so I need to like basically buy all new parts. And so yeah, that was a deal.
So the podcast you do, ShopTalk Show, obviously is a web dev podcast about front-end web design and everything associated with web stuff, and is worth. Well, I guess I'm the editor of the show, so it's you should all go listen to it. So there's lots of people listening, because then they continue to do the show. So then I continue to have food or money to buy food, etc. There's obviously that angle, but also just for an interesting way, I guess, of just as a podcaster, to go listen to a few episodes, just to hear the dynamic, I guess, of two friends talking about the industry and a thing that they care a lot about, obviously, and the way that they incorporate guests, and is, I think, unique in terms of unlike what I'm doing here, where it's kind of like an interview about you and what you do. I like the way that you guys bring guests on. It's more like you have a bit of like a what do you do thing, but it's more like, okay, we're going to talk about this thing about our industry, and you're just another panel on our sort of roundtable of discussion or whatever. And I think that's an interesting angle that not a lot of podcasts, if you're just doing like the casual friends chatting about stuff podcast, it tends to usually be 2 to 4, like we joked about, dudes talking Apple all the time. And I think the way that you guys incorporate guests is a kind of a unique little spin on it. It's not like, I know it wasn't like groundbreaking, like you were the first to ever do that, but in this, I don't see a lot of podcasts sort of incorporating that. Because it is tough to schedule guests, and scheduling is an extra headache to add to a podcast that you're trying to do weekly, especially. And
getting guests in and scheduled is tough, and then getting quality audio capture from them is tough too. Can share a link in these show notes, but we built out this page for guest notes, or so that we send when we invite people to, or they agree to come on the show, and we just kind of say like, here's what you need. You need like good internet, you need headphones, and you need a microphone. That can be the iPhone, ear mic if you want, but we just need like some decent microphone, like we just need something. So and those are kind of, you boil it down to those 3 requirements, and then we don't make them download Logic or whatever to capture their audio, or audio hijack even. We just like open up QuickTime and make sure your mic's selected, and then we'll do a 3, 2, 1 record, hit record. And that's basically how we do it. We try to make it as easy as possible for guests. We tried to optimize for that so that people can pop in and out over a lunch break. And I think that's a very, if you're going to bring in guests, I think that's a really necessary thing you got to figure out. But it also helps on the other side, have a format, like I think that's another thing, we'll just talk is like, maybe not the best format, right? Like, like we'll just talk, we'll be funny, just like when we're drinking is a tough format to do, right? So, but like this podcast is, I think you said like, 45-ish minutes, right? And we're going to talk about podcasting. Awesome. Let's jam. I like that. Like you're just very like singular topic. That can be your formula. Ours is, we do a little bit of banter, but we very intentionally don't do like the, hey, how's the weather? Or, the classic cliches, right? Or, oh, you have a strange accent. Tell me about where you live. We try to avoid those, and get just into like, who are you? What do you do? Like, what is your, what, like, give people a frame of reference for why you're even on the show. Like, that would be that's polite, right? Like, I mean, that's like, you go to a party. Oh, that you don't know Jeff. That Jeff works at so and so, and this is why I know Jeff. And so now it's like, okay, Jeff's at the party. Let's talk. Jeff with a G, of course. Jeff with the G. And so it's very you got to do that, and then but if you have your format, which ours is like, we're going to take questions and answers and do Q&A and walk through it, and maybe we'll let us know, and we do that, and that's before every show, or we that's every show with a guest, and shows without guests are question and answer shows that listeners submitted, and so it's very and we did kind of learn. We had a couple guests where we did the Q&A, just random user submitted Q&A, and it was very clearly outside of their wheelhouse. Like, they're a designer, and these are some pretty nitty gritty CSS questions, and they were just like, I got nothing, and we were like, oh, this is painful. So we had to make sure that questions were very much in the wheelhouse of the guest too. Like, you don't want to, like, it's rude to go outside of your guest's wheelhouse, so we kind of learned how to do that as well. And so that's tough, like, because you want to talk about whatever the new hotness. Edge is now based on Chrome, you want to talk about that, but not everyone cares. So, if it's like a major backend dev, like, they don't care, like, whatever. I do Java, like, how is this relevant to me? Or a designer, it's like, what's Edge, like, I mean, and so, but to me, that as an Edge user and web developer, that's very important, so what do you do,
Well, that's where now I think your switch to Windows 2 helps, because Chris is obviously your co-host or whatever on there. Chris Coyer is obviously very invested in the Mac side, and like, not that he's a zealot or whatever, but he's, has said multiple times on the show, like, he's just too invested in it to like contemplate switching at this point. Not that he never will, but and not that he has to, but it just gives him a good balance too of like experience and in a very small R way representation, I guess, of of listeners out there that now I think you open yourselves up to more folks who maybe previously dismissed you as, oh, that Mac dev podcast or whatever web podcast, and yeah, it just kind of helps to have that experience. So
Yeah, no, I mean, we kind of took that format probably. Dignation was a big influence on me. And it's an old video and
Yeah.
audio podcast, but it was very Mac versus PC, very punchy. And I recently saw Alex Albrecht on the Blizzard live stream, and I just was like, "Oh my God, it's
Yeah.
Alex Albrecht!"
Yeah, he was like hosting the BlizzCon thing or whatever,
BlizzCon,
like some sort of
the
gig there.
BlizzCon live stream, and I just
Yeah.
was having like hot sweats, like just fanboying about this guy. But that dynamic was really cool. It added a lot of depth. I listened to some podcasts, and I'm not, no judgment zone, but it's like, oh, tell me about your setup. Well, I use a 2017 iMac. Oh, I use a 2017 iMac. Great. Nice to meet you. Like, we're the same exact person, and that's, it's okay, but like the like, I guess it's contrast, right? Like you need both ends of the spectrum to kind of make the spice of life. So
Yeah. So your other podcast that you do is help fueling, or is it a result of, I guess, maybe your video game addiction, which I don't know which came first, but probably the video game addiction, I would guess, before you do a podcast about video games. But
Yeah.
a side quest, tell me a bit about that show. And
So a side quest is a podcast I co-host with Yan Wang, who is in my game squad. And yeah, so it basically came out of the fact that we both have like a Steam account with 400 games in it that we've never played.
amen,
And
brother.
yeah, I know, right? And then we're just, we just were like, we should do here's the format. Again, back to formats, it's a stand up, just like at work. And because we're both web people, like it's a stand up. So we say, okay, what did you play last week? What are you playing this week? And do you have any blockers? Just like that classic stand up
Right.
format. And that's it. That's how we kind of structure it. We kind of go through and like, so what games did you play? Oh, tell me about that game, and just sort of a format for a casual conversation that we would normally have. But sort of that, that's the format is we do that. And so anytime we go in and turn on the mics, we know the format. We don't have to guess it. We just know it,
Yeah. And I think that's the format for you guys with that is, and it's generally 20 to 30 minutes, like I would think.
Yeah, we're trying
roughly
to keep it short. Yeah, like 20 to 30 minutes. Yeah.
Because what I like about it is that and you're not like necessarily forcing yourself into weekly or whatever. Like I think it might even be on a bit of a hiatus right now, but the format, I think so many people could steal that format, I think, and have a really fun podcast, because you even allow yourselves, I know on various times when you record, is like either you or his name is
Jan.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. You allow yourselves to be like, I actually didn't play much this week, but here's what I'm hoping to play next week, or like, and because life happens obviously, and if to me it feels like a bit of like an audio journal of your video game experience, and so I think you could apply that thing to, like you said, that stand-up format even to so many other niches or topics or whatever whether it's movies or TV or whatever. And like, it feels silly. I know sometimes you're like, what are your blockers? And like, well, I have a life. I have kids. I can't play video games. So it's not like you're going super deep into this philosophical reason why you're stuck on the second level of Mario. But
that, yeah, I mean, that's our thing is like, yeah, you listen to video games podcasts and it's like, well, Spider-Man came out today and I finished it last week, and you're just like, how? Like you don't have a job? What? No,
Yeah.
what?
How do you watch all the TikTok videos if you're playing video games?
Yeah, how did you finish a game before it came out? And so you just have no like, and that's like professional video game journalism. Like that should totally be a thing. But when you're a person with a Steam backlog or a Switch backlog, you're just like, how? I don't have time to do this, So our thing was just try to like, through this podcast, we would have a vehicle to learn or force us to pick up those games and play those dumb games we've been thinking about, for a while. And so, and we kind of can get into indie games or AAA games, or it's kind of become the Overwatch and Switch show, but that's just because we're addicted to We have an Overwatch minute now, so we have a new segment, but
Yeah.
but it has been on hiatus. Had like I had quite a few health issues, not personally, but like my uncle got sick and passed away, that was sort of like a long deal. And then my wife tore her ACL, and it was her driving leg. So surprise, I suddenly had two jobs, um,
Yeah.
for like carting kids around and stuff like that. So, all the not stuff happens, so it's not end of the world, but it was. She's better now, but it was a lot of like energy drain, and so like getting on at 9 o'clock to record a podcast was impossible because I was asleep at 7. So
Yeah. Well, and even when you're obviously it's not like your career depends on that podcast per se, and also obviously you have to play a certain amount of games possibly to even be able to talk about our A game. And so if you're if your only downtime is just finishing a level in a game and then like shutting off the switch or whatever, it's tough to like especially with kids.
I think so we started out doing every week, right, on that, and we got about 20 episodes in. I think I could be way wrong on that, but but I think I want to. I think we're going to do every other week, because if you do every week, like the chances are, it's like, what'd you do last week? Oh, I was on level 1 of Hollow Knight. And then the next week, what'd you do this week? Well, I'm on level 2 of Hollow Knight. Like the progression arc is not huge or dramatic, I guess. So again, that's another thing about podcasting. What's your pacing, right? And so I think we're going to do every other week. We might bring our friend in, Zach, who's pretty knowledgeable about video games. We're like very like, I liked it. It was fun, but he's way more critical, like thoughtful, I guess would be the right term, about games. Like what is making it good? Why did I like it? So
yeah.
So I think that's kind of our hope. So
yeah, and it's fun. Like I would encourage folks to go listen to it, because it's even the back. Like it's one of those things that's fairly timeless in terms of like the games you talk about. I know there's multiple games. Unfortunately, if you're the listener who has the Steam backlog, don't go into it thinking this is going to help motivate me to finish, because you're just going to find out about more games you add to your Steam wish list or backlog that
unfortunately,
didn't come across before. So,
but I have had people say like, oh, I did like finish a game, or just like you encouraged me to pick up a game and stuff like that. And so that's all. I mean, for me, it's just, I don't know. Games are fun because they have stories involved in them, and art and interaction, and that's fun. Like we should experience that. We should try to experience a lot of different kinds of that,
Yeah. So. Yeah. And that's, I think I appreciate the positive angle on it too. I find so much, I feel like even podcasts, and especially Twitter, obviously, you're kind of like, it's like, okay, that's great, you liked it, but what did you not like about it? So I know how to rank you or this game or whatever. And like the unabashed kind of positive side, which going back to Alex Albrecht, there's a guy he was on another show called Totally Rad Show. I don't know if you ever followed that one.
Totally Rad Show.
And like Jeff, what's his name? Jeff Canada. Like you follow the guy, like he definitely has his politics angle, which is one side of it, but like he's so excited about everything, and like it's not in like a Apple, like we joked about earlier. Apple's like, this is our best phone ever, and like, well, of course it is, because it's just the most recent one. But he's actually genuinely like pumped, excited about stuff. Like he's able to thinks critically, I think, in stuff that I watch and hear him talk about. But just like that positive fun, and I think that's kind of too where there's a place for the hypercritical kind of analyzing everything to death, but also just like, what did you love about this thing, and that kind of angle is a lot of fun. And there's another podcast I'll plug too in the video game realm called The Short Game, where they do, it's I forget what the bio is, it's games that respect your time, I think, or something like that.
Okay.
And it's just like, they don't, so again, like having a good focus, they don't cover whatever the latest Zelda, even though they play that, they love that game obviously, but it's kind of games that are shorter, and they can talk through, you can play through in a few hours, and then they talk about them on the show, and it gives you just like a fun perspective on the game, and maybe introduce you to a game you wouldn't have otherwise heard of, and it's also kind of in this vein of like, not a lot of time for stuff, here's an interesting way to find out about some new games.
Yeah, I listened to a podcast for a while. I forget the name, so I don't even want to try. But it was a couple or a few women talking about casual games, like phone games, and
Right.
just because those are always kind of second class citizens in the AAA gaming world. Oh, that's but it was a good podcast. It just was like, oh, here's a game I picked up, almost like Touch Arcade or what is that what that blog is called?
Yeah.
But it was kind of like, yeah, I picked up this game. It's fun. It's addictive. It's I don't like it. Blah blah blah. I thought that was really cool. The So yeah, there's gaming such a wide thing, and even not digital video gaming. Like I've started watching Let's Plays of board games.
Right. Yeah.
Just because I don't want to buy the game and then not like it, right? So I just want to see how it goes and let me see if it's interesting. So
yeah.
So I've started watching Let's Plays of board games because I'm just like, tell me about it. Like I want to see people play it, see if I want to have that experience. So.
Yeah, which is great. Again, circling back to like Twitch stuff too, is like there's Twitch channels where it's just like people, whether it's D&D or other, but like board physical games, and then you don't have to. I mean, whether you love watching it every week or not, but like it gives you a taste of a game, so you know whether it's going to be fun for you or your family or your friends to actually buy or play. And there's actually a YouTube channel, I'll put it in the show notes too, a guy called Actual Law. Anyway, where he reviews board games exclusively, and he's like a British guy, and it's great. Like I loved it because his featured video on his channel is why you should never play Monopoly again, which I completely agree with, and so it's kind of supported my politics on Monopoly, because my son loves Monopoly and I think it's a stupid game. But anyway,
you put your foot down. This is capitalist propaganda.
But he actually he nails it for me. Like it was like, oh yeah, that is why I find this game so frustrating and annoying. And like obviously it's a bias that got confirmed, so I'm happy about it. But he goes through like the hottest games of the year, and like not in a I don't know. Sometimes they're like podcasts and stuff can be when they review things. It's obvious they're just like doing it because they want more of those games to pay them to play the game, or I don't know. And it feels like it's a very healthy look at board games, I guess, from considering that you're going to be playing with other people, not just your own like or whatever your own preferences. So, anyways, that's a random little tangent into the game view of.
No, again, it's find your format and try it out. I feel like I think I have a blog post written about this, but you find your format, write it down, and try to sell people on just what you wrote down. And because that formula will be the make or break of the podcast. I feel like, and then just like a stew, how can you spice up that formula? How can you augment that formula?
Right.
Another one was the 1 hour or 30 minutes. I think for Shop Talk is 1 hour. It's like a big kind of long format, like brewing discussion on multiple things. But a side quest is potentially half an hour, because I was like, well, somebody at 2x can do that on the drive to work. You know, I think about that stuff. And Shop Talk is at 2x a there and back. Sort of thing. And so, which is all fine. But
one of these times I'm going to accidentally, because I'll edit sometimes at 2x, and I'll accidentally like export it at 2x. And not connect it to the fact, because it sounds normal to me now, almost like at 2x, right? And so I'm sure we'll publish an episode eventually here where I'm like, it's at 2x. All the 2x people are going to freak out because it's going to be at 4x when they listen to it, and all the normal folks or whatever are not normal. I didn't mean to denigrate the
normies. 1xers.
Yeah,
1xers. No, I think about this a lot. I have all my browsers or whatever. You can right click and go set the playback rate on videos and stuff like that.
Oh right, yeah.
YouTube's and everything. I'm always 2x, but now I'm like 2x is kind of slow, buddy. What's taking so long?
You're like,
can we go? Can I get a 2.5 or a 3? Why am I being limited?
Because you're going to your drug dealer. Just like I need a faster hit.
Just like, hey buddy, hey. I know 2x, but
just for the weekend. I just need something to get me through the weekend.
Just got to power through some content this weekend, buddy. So.
All right. Well, we're at the hour mark, I think, or thereabouts. Yeah. So we'll stick to that for this show. I guess I'll have links to the show in the show notes, obviously, to everywhere we've talked about. Goodstuff.fm/SMYM/123 is this particular episode. Anything else you want to plug or mention by way of
one other podcast, 2 Minute Paul, where I sit down with my friend Paul Russo, and he dispenses wisdom 2 minutes at a time. He is a national treasure. So Paul, and we powered through a 6-pack over the season. So it's really, really a quality formula. Again, back to the formula. So check that out. And I think you and I, Chris, might have to do an after hours about the new iPads, the Pros. So we'll have to. I'm thinking about getting one. So we'll have to discuss this in detail.
So, sounds good. I'll put that on the Patreon feed. There's a Good Stuff Patreon feed. I don't know if that's going to happen today or tomorrow or whatever, but patreon.com/goodstuff. Kyle and I have soft launched it, I think is the term that the kids use.
Nice.
So there's we'll throw some after hours discussions on there, extra podcast stuff, and of course it's a way to just, if you want to support what you see or hear, generally here at Goodstuff.fm, any of the shows, all the great shows that we do here, and you can throw a couple bucks there, and just helps pay for server costs and all that kind of stuff. Keeps the lights on, as it were. Thanks, Dave. So, folks, go check out DaveRupert.com. Actually, is your blog too. I was going to say, where you do some writings, old school blog style, and very thoughtful, very great. Not just web dev stuff, all sorts of stuff. And we're subscribing. If you still have an RSS feed reader handy to subscribe to it, and then on the Twitter's Davatron5000 for thoughtful thoughts on, I don't know, video games, web dev, and kids, I guess. I don't know.
There you go. Bad parenting.
Yeah. And thank you, folks, for listening. Thanks for watching. If you're out there on the YouTube channel watching us after the fact, this video is this podcast, is a podcast that we do in video form. So you can visit goodstuff.fm to check out all the shows there. Like I said earlier, I never know how to draw. Like, it's just like crossing the stream sometimes feels so awkward because there's like 15 people that might watch this on YouTube, a few hundred that listen in audio form. And if so,
you gotta write it out, Chris. Yeah. Iron it out.
Get the format.
Get the outro. That's another piece. You got an intro and the outro.
I love what you do with, like, even a Shop Talk, like, where it is like, obviously I listen to every episode in detail, and so I hear, it's like the same. It's a scripted thing, right? Which I what's the word? Push against for some reason, even though I know it would help me. Because I feel dumb doing a scripted thing for some reason, but it would make the show infinitely better to have, like, I have to remind myself, it's like a comfort thing, right? It's like, I know when I go to McDonald's and I go order the cheeseburger meal with the fries, I'm getting that same thing every time, even though I'm not comparing your podcast to McDonald's food in terms of quality, but like,
it's at maybe Jack in the Box level. I mean,
and so, like, it's a comfort thing. The intro to this is this, the whatever is this, and the segment is this, and there's like a comfort level with that, just like watching a TV show or whatever that you get into, and so I slap myself on the wrist for not doing better at what I preach.
You can do it.
Okay. Thanks, Dave.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Bye.